way everyone can see your comments as you're coming in, because I think it defaults to just the panelists, but just so we can share with everyone, if you can go to your chat, and in the two drop down box, it gives you an option to switch on all panelists and attendees. So if you can do that, everyone can see your comments and questions as you're coming in. So we do invite you to let us know where you're calling in from today, and what your role is in the community or the organization you're affiliated with. I'm seeing folks from Missouri and Canada and Montana and Pennsylvania. Someone from Duncanville, Texas. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. See Maryland. A few from Maryland. Louisiana Main Street, welcome. Waitsfield, Vermont. Sarah and I are in Vermont today. That's where at least two of our panelists are presenting from. And I see Georgia Electric Membership Corps. Hi, Arena. It's good to have you today. Brooklyn, Iowa. Emporium. Hi, Jess. Good to have you here with us today. Texas, Arizona, Colville, Washington. Great. So great to have so many of you with us today. We're just going to get started in a few seconds. Still a lot of people popping on, so I thought I'd give it just maybe one more minute. Hey, hi, Steph from the EPA Office of Community Revitalization in DC. And Bonnie from Missoula. Hi, welcome. Barb, Kelly, so glad you could join us from Upper Chi, Pennsylvania. Oh, I see Alonda Green from Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm going to be heading to North Carolina next month. We have some family there. Another North Carolina, Wilmington. Great. Okay, welcome everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Sarah?
Great.
I'll let you do those honors.
Joan. All right, yes. So thank you so much everyone for joining us today here for our Community Heart and Soul Coach Training Program overview. We're so happy. It was wonderful as Joan was welcoming all of you to hear the names of all those states and people, and it's wonderful to have you all here. We have three hosts today. We'd like to introduce ourselves and just welcome you all today. My name is Sarah Leitner, and I'm the Senior Director here at Community Heart and Soul, working with the training program. Next, we have Joan, my colleague, Joan Wagner, who you've heard welcome you earlier. She is the Senior Associate of Training here at Community Heart and Soul.
Hi, everyone.
And finally, we have Alice Trowbridge. Alice Trowbridge is a Community Heart and Soul coach based in the state of Pennsylvania.
Hi, everybody.
Great. So we are going to just go ahead and get started this afternoon. And we're going to start with just a few Zoom webinar basics. Given that, you know, many of you have been on many Zoom webinars over the past months, I'm sure that a lot of this is pretty normal, but just to go through everything that we're doing today, we do have everyone muted so that we can have good sound quality today. As Joan mentioned at the very beginning, just to be sure to use that chat box function to interact with hosts and fellow attendees. And again, just to, on the drop-down box, if you select all panelists and attendees in the chat to make sure that everyone can see your comments or questions. And finally, if you have any technology questions, we do have someone at the end of info@communityheartandsoul.org to help you if you have any questions as we continue with our webinar today. Any questions related to technology? All right, so let's get started here. Just to say that we are so happy to have you all here, and we're also very happy to say that we are beginning recruitment for our next cohort of community heart and soul coaches for the year 2021. And that's really what our webinar today is all about. First, we're going to talk about a very brief overview of the community heart and soul model. Next, we are going to dive into the actual coach training program itself and tell you more about what that's all about, and talk a lot about, the benefits of being a heart and soul coach, and then really get into the nuts and bolts of what the program is really all about. And then finally, you all get to hear from a heart and soul coach who's working in communities to hear more about her experience and her thoughts on being a community heart and soul coach. And that's, again, our guest presenter today, Alice Trowbridge. So just to go ahead and get started with talking more about the community heart and soul model. So the community heart and soul model is a resident-driven process that engages the entire population of a town in identifying what they love most about their community, the future they want for their community, and how they can achieve that. And the coach training program is really all about the model. And so it's a little bit hard to talk about it in just a few minutes, but I'm going to do the best that I can to really just talk briefly about what the model is all about. And some of you probably already know, as Joan was welcoming you, I heard many of you that I recognize the names from other, relationships and people that we know. So the model is really based on 3 principles. And if you'll just, I'm going to stop sharing and start back again, because for some reason that had a little bit of a, wasn't allowing me to go forward. So let me do what I can to get this started again. Okay, hopefully this does it. For some reason, it's not wanting to move forward. Well, so I can just talk anyway. The community heart and soul model has 3 foundational principles that we use to talk about what heart and soul is all about. The first being involve everyone. There we go. Involve everyone, focus on what matters most, and play the long game. And when we talk about the principle involve everyone, that is really about inviting and ensuring that all voices in the community are part of the process, especially those who are hidden and missing, and ensuring that this resident-driven process really involves the full community. The next principle, focus on what matters most. Now, when we talk about focus on what matters most, we're really talking about the idea that the community and the team and everyone really focuses on gathering stories, the stories about what they love about their community and really what their hopes are for their community's future. And through that, focusing on what matters most, common themes emerge. And that really drives the work, and that common theme and that feeling of working together on focusing on what matters most. And finally, the third principle of playing the long game. We like to say that community heart and soul is just the beginning of a community's journey, a journey that really changes the way that community does business, changes the way that they make decisions, and really sets the path for future decision making in that community. Play the long game. And then we talk about our model as having 4 phases, and really as a community heart and soul coach, which you're going to learn about in a bit, it's about working with a community through the 4 phases. In the middle graphic there, you'll see what we call our heart and soul wheel. And the first phase is called Imagine. And this is really where a heart and soul team is built, and they begin to build awareness and interest for the work as the community begins to get involved in what heart and soul is all about. And that's in Imagine. And second, in Connect, the community gathers stories and focuses on what their hopes are for their community's future. Those stories are used to build the heart and soul statements. And those statements are really what drives the work and really makes the work go forward into phase 3, which is Plan. And in Plan, those heart and soul statements are used to determine actions to shape the community's future. Phase 4, Act, is really about having those actions come to fruition and building a stewardship team so that the work of heart and soul continues. And you'll see this photo montage on the right is actually a community heart and soul team that's coming together in that phase 2 of Connect to draft their heart and soul statements based on the stories that they have gathered throughout their community, focusing on what they love about their community and the changes that they would love to see in their community for their future. We also like to talk about, or really, illustrate the benefits of the community heart and soul work in a community. What are some of the things, what are some of the outcomes, the things that happen because of the investment that a community makes of time and really coming together through the heart and soul model? And as a coach, this is just an aside, but as a coach, you gather so many of these stories of benefits and outcomes that when you look at these, you will know of your own examples of, as an example, number 1, new leaders and volunteers emerge. Through the heart and soul process, new people are involved and become important leaders, new leaders in their communities, new volunteers, people who maybe haven't volunteered before in the community. Heart and soul can bring them together to start to do great things for their community. Another outcome is that trust is built, even just through the process of sharing stories, talking about what matters. It's a natural thing for trust to be built in a community, especially as you're bringing people together to really talk about what their community means to them. Another outcome or benefit that we have seen time and time again throughout all of the work that we've done in all sorts of communities across the United States is the re-energizing of downtowns or of public spaces where people gather. Many communities have Main Street programs or revitalization of different areas of their communities. And this is also part of one of the benefits of the community heart and soul model, is seeing that re-energizing happening. Number 4, pride is restored. As people are talking and re-remembering what their community means to them, the histories of their communities, their stories about their communities, it naturally brings this feeling of pride of place. This is my place, this is where I'm from, and this is why I love where I'm from. And finally, another benefit is that history and culture are honored. Stories of the past mixing with stories from the present is another way to just keep that history alive and make it something that's part of a community's story, is having the time and the place to honor that history and culture. So those are just some of the great benefits of the community heart and soul model, again, that we see uniquely in all different places in all different ways. And now I want to share with you a clip from one of our Heart and Soul communities and their project coordinator as she talks about the community and the work that they did during Community Heart and Soul.
I'm Autumn Vogel. I live in Meadville, Pennsylvania. I currently serve on Meadville City Council, and I was the project coordinator for Meadville's Community Heart and Soul initiative, My Meadville, in 2017 and 2018. I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of about our Heart and Soul initiative, and certainly I think one of the biggest impacts that Heart and Soul had in our community, was just involving new people who weren't typically involved, who weren't typically at the table, who weren't typically heard, and involving them in a really meaningful way in shaping our town and in envisioning, new possibilities for our future. And to reach them in ways that were fun and exciting and engaging. They had a stake, right, in this community, that they were proud of this place, that they cared about this place, that they had a role to play in making it the kind of place that they want to live. So I don't know that any community was really ready for the pandemic that hit. We certainly weren't, but I think that we were more ready than we would have been to connect people. We learned through Community Heart and Soul how to talk to each other and how to connect with one another based on values that we shared, things that we loved about our town or our neighborhoods. All of those ways in which Community Heart and Soul trained so many people, dozens of people in our town, to kind of have those kinds of conversations. I think that we were prepared in a way that we wouldn't have been otherwise without going through the Community Heart and Soul process. We were prepared to reach out to neighbors and to care about one another and to care about the place that we're in and the place that we share, and to be a little more resilient in this pandemic because of that.
All right, I love that message from Autumn and just those images of the community coming together to do their heart and soul work. Now, just to shift gears a little bit and talk about what I hope all of you are here, especially to hear about today, is about our Community Heart and Soul Coach Training Program. So our program prepares coaches to guide communities through the Community Heart and Soul process. And that's just kind of an overarching way to talk about, what coaches do. And right now, we just want to talk a little bit more about what that's all about. And so let's talk a little bit about the benefits of becoming a heart and soul coach. Why would this be of interest to you, or what really does it mean to be a heart and soul coach? So when we talk about these benefits, the first one is just this idea of creating lasting change in communities. As a heart and soul coach, you are working alongside, guiding a community as they are doing work that is changing the way that their community is going to go into the future. And for many of you on this call today, I know you have had experience probably in community development work, in working with communities. And for many of our coaches, just that idea of being part of that change as this happens with communities is such a great benefit of the role of a heart and soul coach, of being a coach. The next is just the idea that you are developing new skills. Of course, the one main skill is learning the community heart and soul model, learning how to facilitate that model in a community, There are also great things, I'm sure, that you'll learn along the way, new ideas for creative resident engagement, new ways to think about community networking, all sorts of skills, just in addition to learning the community heart and soul model is one of the benefits of becoming a heart and soul coach. The next is the idea that you can expand your income by becoming a heart and soul coach. Coaches charge fees to communities to help facilitate the model with them. And, this is the more communities that you work with, the more opportunity there is there. And really, for us, we are really wanting to see this model spread across the United States. And your success is really our success when you are working with communities. The fourth benefit is learning from experienced professionals. We have professional trainers and experienced coaches who are part of our training program. And we also have a great curriculum from which they are teaching, and you are learning about community heart and soul with this group of trainers and experienced coaches. And finally, just the idea that becoming a heart and soul coach, you are growing your professional network. If you are able to go to our website, we have a page especially dedicated to our coaches, and you can read bios from this great group of coaches that we have, and that's a network that you will be joining. In addition, as you, with the new cohort, you're working with a group, specifically, you're learning together. It's a great opportunity to meet, like-minded community development professionals, many with, everyone with their own unique skills and talents that they bring into this role of being a heart and soul coach. And so next, just really quickly to talk about the role of the heart and soul coach. So we talk about coaches as trainers, that you have a curriculum and you are teaching communities through the 4 phases of the model. The second is facilitator. You are facilitating workshops, facilitating conversations, small group work with the heart and soul team. And it's really where that, that key role and differentiation between a trainer and facilitator is really important here. And you're thinking about, not just giving answers, but facilitating conversations. Thirdly is the role of consultant. The team is consulting you, asking you to, help give ideas or advice as they are putting together different events or working through things as a team in their community. And you also play that role as a heart and soul coach. Kind of mixed with that consultant is also the idea of being a mentor with the team, the heart and soul team. And finally, you are a promoter. You're a promoter of community heart and soul, the model. You are promoting and marketing and finding new communities who are interested in taking on this work and this exciting journey themselves of becoming a community heart and soul town. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Joan, and Joan is going to talk much more in depth about the training program itself. So over to you, Joan.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So yes, as you can see on this slide, we talk about having 2 levels of the training program. So this is kind of 2-part design. And the idea is that candidates begin with a 12-week virtual training series and then move on to a guided field experience working with a heart and soul community. So the training in level 1 is all about providing the knowledge base for the community heart and soul model, as Sarah just talked about, essentially familiarizing you with the tools and techniques we've developed. So you'll learn the ins and outs of the model and how it all works to deepen resident engagement and community decision-making. You'll also learn about how the coach role fits into the community's process with heart and soul. So this training leading to level 1 certification is designed to give you the ability to go out and confidently talk to communities about heart and soul, to introduce it to them, to help them determine if it's a good fit, and then to assist them in launching the program in their community with you as their coach. The level 2 training serves as your practicum. As you coach a community through heart and soul for the first time, we provide ongoing guidance and support. So you'll have access to the heart and soul training staff and all of our materials. You'll also become part of our nationwide community of practice, where you can learn from and network with other coaches across the country. So let's take a look at a little closer look at the instructional design for level 1 training. So here you can see that the 12-week series has 3 components, which allow you to participate and learn wherever you are in the country. So one component is a series of online learning modules that you do on your own time at your own pace. And the content of these lessons focus on learning how the community heart and soul model works. So things like what makes it unique as an approach to community development? How do the 3 core principles and the 4 phases actually play out in the program? What is happening in each of the 4 phases? What are communities doing each step of the way? And what are the tools that support the principles and activities of heart and soul? You'll also learn a little bit more about what kind of outcomes communities have experienced by embracing their heart and soul. A second component is a series of live workshops where everyone in the training program tunes in at the same time on our web conferencing platform. And the focus of the live sessions is on how to take what you are learning in the online modules and apply it in the community as a coach. These sessions will be interactive in a place where you can ask questions, talk with others, and probably most importantly or interestingly is to try out for yourself many of the tools and techniques that make Community Heart and Soul module the model unique. So what you see in the online modules, you can try out a little bit in kind of our live sessions. And then a third component is mentorship and collaborative learning. Once you're accepted into the training program, each person is assigned a staff mentor, and you'll meet with this person several times throughout the program. So these 3 components are interwoven throughout the 12 weeks. So even though it might appear that this is a linear design, you can expect to be going back and forth between the 3 components. So for example, you complete an online module first before coming to a live workshop session. So let's take a closer look at the schedule for the virtual training series, which could be important to many of you. So taking into account the 3 main training components I just talked about, we estimate you'd be investing about 4 hours per week over the 12 weeks. Of course, this might be a little less or more depending on your learning style. And the live virtual workshops will take place about every other week throughout the months of July, August, and September. And you can see the dates here. They'll be held on Thursday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And a new online learning module will be released every 2 weeks along the same schedule so that you have time to complete a module before a live workshop. Now let's take a look at level 2, the guided field experience. All right. So again, you can see that there are 3 components. Level 2 training begins after you have completed the virtual training series and have a committed community to work with. And the star of this show and our 3 components is really the actual going out and performing the roles of a heart and soul coach in the community. This is where you're guiding the community team through the different phases of the process, from getting them started through to phase 4, and that can take 18 to 24 months. You'll not only be training the team in the model, but also serving, as Sarah said, as a consultant, an advocate, and a cheerleader along the way. Component 2 consists of regular calls with our heart and soul staff to prepare for delivering phase workshops to your heart and soul community. It's also a place to exchange ideas about what's going on in the community you're coaching, to troubleshoot challenges, and essentially just to keep the positive momentum going. Overall, you'll find that the concept of collaborative learning is an essential part of our training program. That's why we created a national community of practice, which provides a shared space for coaches to network with and learn from each other. What we love about our coaches is how they each bring a different set of life and professional experiences to their work with communities. We've witnessed the incredible synergy and creativity that happens when they are together and can share ideas and support one another. It's always been true, and it's been even more important this past year as both our coaches and heart and soul towns have navigated community engagement during the pandemic. The third component, tracking and evaluation, is simply about keeping track of progress in your community, as well as taking advantage of opportunities to receive feedback on your coaching. So with that overview of what to expect, I'm thrilled to reintroduce Alice Trowbridge to talk about her experience with our training program of serving as a heart and soul coach and what it's like working with heart and soul communities. Alice.
Hi, everybody. Just a bit about me. I am a landscape architect, and I've worked in recreation and river-related planning for about 30 years. I always enjoyed this work because it meant working with communities to develop plans for bettering their towns. And the typical process meant working with a steering committee of volunteers and stakeholders, reaching out to citizens with surveys, and we'd always get input from the same 10 or 20 people that show up at meetings. And then we would host public meetings to get feedback on ideas that the steering committee had already developed. Well, in 2016, I started working with the City of Williamsport as a project coordinator for Community Heart and Soul. And I learned a new way of doing public participation, and that's Community Heart and Soul. Heart and Soul is much, much more inclusive. It's very strategic, engaging with a broad spectrum of residents. You know, it takes more time, but it is so much more rewarding. And it's much more empowering also, providing opportunity for people to be heard and for them to learn that they have an active role to play in the future of their community. I personally became a coach because I'd like to help make this type of participation available to more communities. And as Lyman Orton has said, this isn't a process, it's a nationwide movement. And I really want to be part of this movement. I find it very fulfilling to see positive changes happening in terms of citizen involvement, you know, more voices being heard, but also more volunteerism rising out of heart and soul. Decision-making that is driven by citizen values, and that really does instill pride and ownership. And being able to help community narratives change. And I've seen this as people start to talk about what's right with their community, what they love about it, things often shift to a much more positive narrative. And that's just very, very exciting to be a part of. And it's such an authentic type of engagement. It's not stuffy like meetings and things that we've done for years and years, but it is very authentic, and it just brings out the best in people. And people learn how to communicate with each other in ways that perhaps they haven't done for a long time. So I personally have learned a lot. Some of the skills that help me work more inclusively with people in general. And through that, I've learned a lot about myself. Community Heart and Soul is a community in itself, too. As a coach, you're part of this much larger network that Sarah spoke about, and it's people who are committed to doing this work. You get great support from the staff and incredible resources to help you, and excellent mentoring. Their training materials are spot on. There's templates that help you through things, and in general, just very, very supportive environment. There's also community of practice calls every other month. And on those, you get to connect with like-minded people all over the United States doing this work. And it's a peer learning opportunity like none I've had anywhere else. And it's very exciting to be part of. So if you're thinking about coaching Community Heart and Soul, you might want to consider these things, because it's an opportunity to add the coach certification program as a tool in your toolbox to expand your professional practice and a lot of personal growth. And I just encourage you to explore the information that's been shared, including website community profile sheets and videos, to see the positive changes happening across the United States. And reach out to Community Heart and Soul staff with any lingering questions. They're very friendly and helpful, and really it's like being part of a family. So my experience has been very exciting, and really, really enjoy this work more than any I've ever done before. So, Sarah?
Thank you so much, Alice. It's great to hear about your experience. All right, so what we want to do now is just to give you information and let you know what we have in terms of a timeline. We are very excited and encourage all of you who are interested to submit an application to our Community Heart and Soul Coach program. And we'll talk in just a little bit about how that will work. The applications are going to be due by May 17th. And that is an online application. Again, we'll talk about how you can get access to that. We're looking to inform applicants by early June so that we can get things together for our 2021 cohort. And we would love to have that commitment deadline from everyone by June 25th so that we can get everything finalized. Alice talked about materials. That is something that we'll need to get out the door by the end of June so that you can have your materials to be able to start the virtual training series that Joan talked about. And that first virtual training session is scheduled for July 15th. And that was on the calendar that Joan shared with all of you. And, you know, with that, we really want to be able to provide some time for people to ask any questions. We also have, you know, you can submit questions, email us at info@communityheartandsoul.org. For those of you on the call today, it's a great opportunity to, you know, use the chat function to ask any questions now. We still have about 20 minutes that we can answer any questions, go into more detail about things that you maybe want to hear more about. But first, before we do all that, we really just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Thank you even for considering this as a possibility that you might be interested in becoming a community heart and soul coach. It's something that is, you know, is an experience that, you know, as Alice talked about, is a great experience. And it's just something that we really would encourage you to think about and learn more about. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so you can see all of our faces, and we've got the chat going, and we are happy to start answering questions.
Okay, so I'm going to try to help moderate some of our questions. I see a number of them coming into the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can. We did have a few come in even during the registration, so we thought we'd start with those, and I think a few of those got repeated in the chat today too. But there was a question about what we're looking for in the application. So I thought, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind answering that. There was also a question about what's involved in the commitment deadline, which is a little further along in the process, but I was kind of I saw both those two pop up. So
yeah, I can put those together. Sure. Yeah. So just to talk a little bit about the application, in terms of the logistics of that, we'll be mailing a link to the application in a couple days. We're aiming for Wednesday to mail that out to everyone. It's an online application. And what we're really looking for in that is to learn more about you as a person, the skills that you have that you will bring into your role as a heart and soul coach, training and facilitation experience that you may have, your experience even promoting or, you know, working with a community-based model and experience you may have with that. We also are interested in knowing about your experience with small cities and towns throughout the US. And, you know, the application has a number of questions in it that will allow us to get to know you better and to know about, you know, your motivation as well for why you really are interested in joining the Community Heart and Soul Coach Training Program. Oh, there was a second part to that as well, Joan, right?
It was the commitment. What was involved? Yeah.
Right. So by the end of June, we just need to have, assuming if you are accepted into the training program, that you will commit to joining the cohort. And part of that as well is Joan talked about the 7 live virtual workshops that, you know, we want to ensure that you are able to attend, you know, at least 5 of those in person. A lot of our, you know, our training program is really about working together, interacting with your cohort. And so we really want to have as many people as possible there for those live virtual workshops, which is why we, you know, have the schedule out so everyone can look at their calendars and ensure that you're able to be there for those workshops.
Great. Actually, there was an even more detailed question about what happens if I can't attend all the workshop sessions, if there's a scheduling conflict. So there certainly, I think, as Sarah just said, there is a place in the application form to indicate any scheduling conflicts in advance that you might have with those dates. It is possible to kind of miss up to 2 sessions, but it's not possible to skip any of the sessions. So because every part of the model is important. But what that means is that sessions will be recorded and available for review in the event you can't make one live. So if that gives just a little bit more detail there. We also had a question about, let me see, go back up here, really about how the model itself works in terms of kind of complementing or / competing with maybe other local community planning programs that are going on in a town. So the question is, how do you interface with local community planning programs that may already be up and running? You know, that might even get into like comprehensive planning, long-range comprehensive planning activities are undertaken by the local government. And even if a community doesn't have a program going, do we coordinate activities with cities or towns so they may use the information and data that's gathered? So certainly Community Heart and Soul is not intended to replace any other community development programs or planning processes that a town is engaged in. It is designed to complement other community initiatives, whether that's economic development planning, comprehensive planning, Main Street, and so forth. It really can become a very strong arm of the community engagement piece of other programs and planning. They can feed into one another. And often when we're talking about putting together heart and soul teams in a town, you want to be engaging and informing those who are working on kind of more comprehensive plans. But I did want to invite Alice if she wanted to respond to that question a little bit, if she's kind of wanted to talk about how she's seeing communities engage with kind of other long-term planning processes that are going on.
Certainly. The data that comes out of the work that you do is valuable to not only, you know, comprehensive planning and community planning, but it's also valuable. It can support grant applications that nonprofits might be doing in your community. So the data you're getting is valuable moving forward. But in terms specifically of a planning process, I see Community Heart and Soul is laying an amazing foundation for public participation, because it engages new people and it is so broad in how it, the depth and breadth of who it engages, that I think it's applicable to any planning efforts going forward. So as Joan said, it's just good to have other planning staff engaged and up to speed on what you're doing, and seeing, however, sharing that information out in any way that it can be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Alice. Yeah, there was also a question about, is Community Heart and Soul limited to small towns? And the answer to that is yes. And probably the follow would be like, well, what do we mean by small cities and towns? So usually it's optimized for populations. Our model is optimized for populations between around 2,500 to 30,000. So if that gives folks a little better idea of what we mean when we say small cities and towns, that's kind of the range that we have in mind. There's also a question about, go up here, about the total fee for the complete training program for a person to become certified. Sarah, did you want to address that one?
Yeah, sure. So some of you probably saw, we did have our overview of the coach training program that was also available during registration. And on the back side of that was information on the program fee. So for the 12-week virtual training series, the fee is $1,495. We did have a sentence in there about getting in touch with us about questions about a potential fee waiver or price reduction. What we are doing with that is there's actually a question in the application where you can provide your thoughts on your ability or what you're thinking in terms of the your ability to cover that cost for the course. And so we can we'll use the application to start to look at that.
Okay, thanks. And then there are several questions about a kind of, I guess, a little bit about coaches' duties. There was one about, do we have guidelines that coaches must abide by? I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to address that one.
Yeah, well, again, we have, when we send out our email on Wednesday with the application link, we are also going to have a link to our coach manual. And there's more information about, guidelines per se in that. We do have the curriculum, and you will be trained in using the Community Heart and Soul curriculum to facilitate the model in a community. When you do become a certified heart and soul coach, we do have a process for renewing your certification. And there are certain things, that you would need to do in terms of renewing your certification to keep it active. And so that could be, related to things you would abide by, so to speak. Joan or Alice, anything to add to that?
No, good. No, thanks. There's a great question. Do community heart and soul coaches typically get work by promoting the program and bringing communities to community heart and soul, or by connecting with communities already in the program?
Well, so that's a great question, and I think we could say it's a little bit of both. I think part of, when we talked about the role of the community heart and soul coach, and we talked about the idea of promotion, definitely as a community heart and soul coach, working with communities who may be interested to learn more about the model, we also have the opportunity to provide information about communities that we have heard of through leads who are interested in potentially pursuing the model. So there are, it comes from both ends in terms of the finding communities to work with.
Yes, and this is somewhat related, might be something that both Sarah and Alice can answer. Who usually pays coaches? Is it city government, nonprofits, foundations, other? What is the typical rate coaches charge, and how many hours per week is a typical coaching commitment? Thought maybe Sarah, you could start, and then if Alice has some details to add there.
Yeah, again, lots of different answers to that question. There are some communities who, contract separately with a coach for their services. There are other arrangements, that we've had in the past where we have organizations who work, who are working specifically in an area, and they're working with communities, and then they help to pair the coach with the community. So there are lots of different ways that does happen. In terms of the different, the amount that a coach would charge for services, for coaching fees, we as an organization don't get involved in how much a coach determines that they're going to charge communities. If you're an independent consultant, that's kind of part of your business decision. but we do have some, average numbers, I think, that coaches have charged in the past.
Alice, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? You're on mute. If you do, oh no. Okay. Okay.
Oh, Alice, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Sorry, I was pressing the space bar and it wasn't working. I would have just echoed what Sarah said. I've been also answering some questions in the chat. So.
oh,
Okay,
great.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And I think some of the questions too, if we miss a particular one, a lot of them will be addressed in kind of the follow-up material that we'll be sending. A more a fuller version of the overview will come in the form of the coach manual. You'll also get a copy of the of our recording today and many of the links that Caitlin has been putting in. So let me see what else. There's question
about timing. The live virtual sessions we determined after talking to a number of people that Thursday afternoons was really the best time for those sessions. So we got those scheduled from 2 to 5, that's Eastern time, on Thursday afternoons.
Right. Question, has the heart and soul model ever been applied to a community other than a town or municipality?
I can take a stab at that. We do have a couple of examples where there's been an area like a county that has taken on community heart and soul together, and really that has worked in those areas because the communities have like a common either school district or county seat. Like there's already a natural kind of way that they're all connected, and so the work flows because of that previous connection. We've had, I guess we could talk about, we've had a couple that have been based on school districts, where it's woven a couple of communities together because they already have that, common relationship of, being together.
Great. We also have a question about, are there competencies in the Heart and Soul Coach Program that relate to diversity and inclusion? As a prospect in a large urban community, I'm curious on navigating some of these complex topics, such as police brutality, solidarity, de-escalation, et cetera. And certainly this is where we absolutely return to one of our core principles in the heart and soul model, which is involve everyone. And the purpose of Heart and Soul is to really be engaging residents to hear each other's stories and to hear from people whose voices are often missing or overlooked in community dialogue, and kind of thinking about how those relationships and having difficult conversations can help I think elevate what's a priority in any particular town or community. Having said that, it's certainly, even though we are very much about finding common ground on the things the community cares about, what binds them together, the model is not designed to have a particular agenda in mind, meaning that it is really up to the people who are embracing the heart and soul process and want to do it to kind of drive where that is going. And so our model helps with all of the kind of, I think I would say, like the practical structure of how to get people talking with each other and talking about things they care about. And then it really does become up to the community to maybe draw on other resources and to be also thinking about how they want to move ahead with the things that are most important to them. I don't know if Sarah, Alice, you want to say more about that?
I think you did a great job, John.
That's good.
Just really going back to that principle again of involving everyone and ensuring that all voices are part of the process.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. I'm seeing a question that came in that says, when it comes to funding the community projects, are there heart and soul materials on how to raise the money or how to have conversations with communities about these funding options? Yeah, so that actually might be a good one for either of you. I don't know if Alice, you have some ideas around that, kind of being in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and kind of thinking about that.
I would say, we've had a lot of, like, when Community Heart and Soul hears about funding options, or maybe organizations that seem to be aligned with something that we've brought forward. And I also work with Pennsylvania Humanities Council, and they do the same. It's like there's a sharing of, here's some opportunities where you may be able to get funding. They don't actually provide the funding, but they may be able to help direct you to resources that can help. But communities through this process will learn to build their own capacity, and they will learn to build a network of stakeholders that hopefully will, by the time you get to the point of implementing projects, you will have a lot more under your belt to be ready to help implement some of the projects.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I know that in the chat, I think we've also put some information related to that too, some of the funding options. Okay. I don't know if this already kind of hits a little bit on what you talked about earlier, Sarah, about, is always focused on just, a town or municipality, but I see a question, can a community be made up of 3 townships instead of 1 township?
Well,
yeah, I would suppose that it kind of depends on what the relationship is of those communities. Every area of the United States kind of talks about communities and using different language and different definitions as well. So I suppose it depends a little bit on, what township means and what the relationship is between those communities. If they shared a school district or shared some sort of a hub where it logically makes sense that they all work together in different ways, that might be a possibility.
Yeah, and something else, I'm just getting ready to begin coaching with a county-wide process, but the entire county fits within the population of under 25,000. So it's, in fact, it's closer to 15,000. And there's going to be challenges with that, but they all have one downtown. And so that's that common core like Sarah's referring to. So I think you have to look at each individual entity and see how they, what their relationship is. And if it's one like that where they share a downtown, it may be something that can be worked.
That's a great example. Thanks.
There was a question too, wanting to hear just a little bit more about how the practicum, or what we call the level 2 guided field experience looks like. I think we could probably talk about that, as I had the slide earlier about the 3 components, and the main part is, helping a town through, coaching them through with guidance and support from our staff. And usually there are pretty frequent check-ins to kind of see how things are going, to bounce ideas off each other, to kind of hear. One of the reasons we want that kind of access is obviously our staff has experience with a lot of different towns and how they might have handled something at any given point in the process. So that's another reason we allow for those opportunities to kind of check in and be planning what's next, and how to keep the process moving along. But I would invite Alice, if she's this is very much something, a part that she's been in as part of her coach journey experience is, I think she talked a little bit about the community practice. We kind of put those, both that peer mentoring piece and the opportunity to work with our staff is all part of kind of that collaborative learning that we have. But Alice, would you want to add anything more specific about how that's fit in with your work with your current community?
Well, it's so helpful. Like I said, like you said, from across the country, there are some communities who've been working with Heart and Soul, almost 10 years or possibly 10 years at this point. So there's a lot of experience. There's a huge body of knowledge to help and support you through it all. And again, the training materials they have are step-by-step. There's lots of templates. It's set up for success. And I guess that's an easy way to say it, but they've done a lot to set coaches up for success, because, the goal here is to have as many communities be able to benefit from Community Heart and Soul as possible, which is why the seed grant program is being brought forward. And as has been mentioned, that can be used to pay for, go toward the coaches. So, there's a lot they're doing to help make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Alice. So I'm very mindful of time and seeing we're coming up at the top of the hour. Thanks for so many good questions, and I'm sure there's a handful that we didn't get to, and I think we put in the information in there, info@communityheartandsoul.org if you'd like to ask some more questions. And get a little further information. As we said, we'll be following up with a lot more, but I'll actually let Sarah help close us out.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joan. So we will be sending out an email on Wednesday that has more information with our Community Heart and Soul Coach Training Program Coach Manual that might answer some of the questions that we haven't been able to answer today. We'll also have a link to the application, and we are, available via email to answer any questions, additional questions you may have that are not answered through the material that we're sending out. We'll also have the link to the recording, and so we'll have all those materials to share with you via email. And we would just like to thank all of you again for, taking the time to spend your hour with us today. We're so excited to see those applications coming in and to have new coaches as part of our coach family. And we just really look forward to hearing from all of you. So thank you so much to everyone. And we wish you a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.